she put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck-a-qua. Cock-a-crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck-a-qua. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. The naga jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell you tales, some picnic are there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Burra Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma Burra Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
Making the short video for send to you and the viewers and listeners. I'll know we punishing in Guyana. Punishing. Rice gone up, sugar gone up, flour gone up, cost of living just gone up, gas gone up from 3,400 to 3,800. Real hungry days under this installed PPP government. Real hungry days we gone back to. Guyanese. Oh, real hungry days, real hungry days.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business. Number two, the hilarious part is that the ordinary thief will choose whom to rob. But you are the one who choose the political thief to rob you. Because we choose them. We vote them. We blindly say we are not blind. Who is deceiving who? The ridiculous part of the whole issue is that we will fight to defend and protect our belongings from the ordinary thief. Is it not? But we fight each other to defend and protect the political thief. Is that not what we do? Thugs will be fighting themselves to protect those that are stealing our career, stealing our joy, stealing our health, stealing our success. What a shame. What a travesty. It calls for us to think and think deep. The stage we are in as a country is not a stage where you become an onlooker. You have become an onlooker for too long. You must get ready to put your hands to the plow and be part of the process. It's not just about PVC, carry PVC. You must be in the kitchen where it is being determined. You must be there where the decisions are being made. If we are there in our numbers, they cannot outnumber us. But you leave it aloof. Oh, no, it's too dirty. It's a dirty game. And then the dirty guy is getting to the game of play. And you are there not showing up. And when they begin to make the decisions, you will know whether it's a dirty game or not. The result is always dirty on yours. Dirty on your health. Dirty on your business. Dirty on your success and your career. I hope that is stirring up something in you.
And good afternoon to all my Facebook friends. Today I am doing this video for my fellow workers to understand that the government of today is not for the working class people. I am saying this simply because all of us are aware that our official from the government yesterday or a few days ago make some announcement, and one of the announcements is to give the severance people maybe $250,000. I have no problem with those giving the severance people money, but my problem is these workers already receive all their benefits, and most of them are working in different estates. End of the day, I have a problem with that. Recently, the agriculture minister says that in order for this industry to survive, we need $1.6 billion. And if this is...
All right, hey, guess what? Good evening. Oh, sorry about that. Good morning. It's probably good evening where some of you are listening, and it's probably good morning also, or good afternoon. Whatever the time frame is, hello to all of you. You're looking, that's the fire there, right, at the police station. And that's Robeson Ben looking at the fire, which is something that he can just do. Look at the fire, because these guys are not going to look at the deeper picture of all of this. They're just going to see politics, and the politics that they are going to see is one which they blame the opposition. That is all they do. That is all they are known for doing, blaming the opposition. They're not looking at the root cause. They're not looking into the mirror at all. And we want those political vagabonds to look into the mirror and to ask themselves, why is it that every time they're in office, Guyana is where it is? The dark days, brutality, police brutality, extrajudicial killings, all these things, suffering of people under the PPP regime. They have to be realistic. And the fact of the matter is that they are not realistic at all. Look at what happened this morning at that press conference with Irfan Ali. Irfan Ali obviously rehearsed, was reading from a script, wasn't quite sure as to what on earth he was saying. He wasn't sure what he was saying, wasn't sure what he was doing, a bunch of lies. He never told you guys that the value-added tax was introduced by the PPP, and it was 16%. 16%. They didn't give a damn about how the people felt. 16%. And those of you who were in Guyana at the time, you'll understand the squeeze. You'll understand that sort of negative impact it had on the economy. But the PPP wasn't concerned about the economy. They weren't concerned about the people, not even their own support base. They weren't concerned at all. It is because, as Dr. Clive Thomas oftentimes in his columns, he wrote about this other economy, meaning the drug trade economy. And that's what was fueling the economy under the 23-year rule of the PPP. There's no if, ands, or buts about that. So we've got to be realistic. So there are several things I want us to discuss within this hour. We're not going over the hour. I want us to talk about, and we will get to that shortly. This is the chairman of the Private Sector Commission, Paul Chong. He is a PPP, a diehard PPP. He is a friend of Irfan Ali and other PPP individuals. And now nothing is wrong with being friends with the PPP or PPP folks. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but he's a diehard, he's a dead PPP, right? So when he comes out and he makes these sort of statements, he's saying this is what the Private Sector Commission has said. And he is the chairman. He says, most concerning is the fact that these fires are being directed against institutions which form part of the architecture of civility and law and blah, blah, blah. But look at what he says here in the next paragraph. The commission has noted that well-known political spokespersons taking comfort by the fact that they live in the USA have sought to encourage and publicly promote terrorist activity in Guyana. Now, he can get himself in some legal hot water here. And now I say that because if he has the evidence that persons residing or well-known spokespersons of the, or political spokesperson, let him come out and say it. Let him say it publicly. Now, we have a lawyer and a young economist. I'm not sure if he likes to be described as an economist, but he is an economist. All right, he can correct me, but let's go to the lawyer first, and let's welcome him on the show this morning, Mr. and he's Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford. Mr. Ford, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I want you to address the elections petition matter, the case that came up today. A decision should be sometime in December 21st of this year. But before we get to that, how dangerous is this statement coming from the president or the chairman of the Private Sector Commission, where he's saying that well-known political spokespersons, right, well-known political spokespersons taking comfort by the fact that they live in the USA have sought to encourage and publicly promote terrorist activity in Guyana? From a legal standpoint, how dangerous is that?
Mark, it is a very dangerous statement. It would have been easier if he would have provided the names of those persons who taking refuge in the United States. I think he should do that. We should encourage him to name those persons.
Yeah, he should go right ahead. And then those persons, I'm sure, will take the next step. And he knows what that next step is. But this is the very guy who is also chairman of the Guy Oil. And Auditor General recommends criminal probe of Guy Oil fuel. But yet this guy, Paul Chong, is not going to say a word about that probe, not a single word about the probe, but he wants to talk about the fire. I don't know. I'll deal with that later on. But let's get back to this elections petition, Mr. Ford. The elections petition. Explain to our listeners what transpired today and what is the next move.
Well, today, Mark, the court, after receiving oral submissions and written submissions, today decided that it will deliver its decision on the 21st of December this year. This is in relation to petition 99, which the Chief Justice dismissed on the argument presented by Nandalal and Mendez, representing the PPP folks, that the petition was not properly served and executed by Mr. David Granger. We believe that that ruling was wrong. It had no substance to it, respectfully to the court, but we filed the appeal to the Court of Appeal. And the first point of argument that they brought up in the Court of Appeal is whether the Court of Appeal has jurisdiction. That means power and competence by law to hear an election petition when it would have been dismissed by the court below, the High Court. Now, we have taken the position that the Court of Appeal must have the power to hear appeals in relation to these type of matters, because practically, Mark, an election petition is a very serious court procedure. It deals with the validity and legality of a government, and therefore it just simply can't be dismissed. We pointed out in our written submissions, both the oral submissions also, that look, you could have a judge who, for any simple reason, decides that he doesn't want to hear a case and simply dismisses it. And that sort of conduct must have a remedy. You just simply can't say that the election petition has been dismissed and that is the end of the matter. Because you may potentially have judges who are so minded to do such a reprehensible act. So that is why we filed the appeal, because we believe that common sense would indicate that the court must have the power to entertain an appeal in those circumstances. Mark, this issue has never came up or been brought up or decided by our Court of Appeal before. So it's a very important issue. So that is what I believe happened today. I've provided a little background to the matter and where we are today.
All right, we thank you so much for that. But having listened to the arguments, the counter arguments of those lawyers representing their client, which is the PPP regime, and the conclusion of today's matter, of course, it is set for a final conclusion on the 21st of December. How optimistic are you that you guys are going to be victorious?
Mark, I'm reasonably optimistic. Ultimately, this is the court. 3 judges will have to decide. It is a matter that has never been decided by our courts before, so there's no precedent to indicate what is the potential resolution or direction that the court will go. But I believe the court will be very concerned about allowing a lower court to have a sort of complete, unreviewable jurisdiction to decide anything that they want. So a judge could just simply decide, once you file the election petition, for whatever reasons, just simply dismiss it, and that is the end of the matter. You can't appeal, the matter could never be brought again. I believe the Court of Appeal will be very concerned, and being a mature court, about the implications this would have for legitimacy of governments, the implication it would have for democracy, because exactly what happened here, Mark, you get into government by a recount, and you just simply, you decide to file an election petition, and the court dismisses it. And that government then becomes immune from being tossed out of office by a legitimate court procedure.
Well, they can argue that they dismissed it on a technicality part. Then the technicality part, which they seem to have gotten a victory with at the first court when it was heard in front of the Chief Justice, the Honorable Chief Justice, it had to do with the serving of the document, which was served 5 days late. Do you think they have a substantial amount of information based on that to stand on for this case?
No, the factual circumstances indicated that it was not served first, it was not served 5 days late. It was an error in relation to the dating of a document, whether it was the 24th or the 25th. It was actually executed by the Commission of Oaths within time, at an earlier date than it was actually executed and signed and dated. So there's evidence before the court that it was not done outside of the time frame. I don't know if I've made myself clear there, Mark. You want me to go over it again?
Sure. You've made yourself clear, but go ahead again.
Oh, no, it's okay, Mark.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that the issue here is that we have to ensure that the court will not be able to make these sort of decisions in the future, and it not being capable of being reviewed by a court of appeal.
Fair enough. Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford is with us. Mr. Ford, I know this is not the first elections petition case you are on. You were on and very successful in the 1997 elections petition case. How different is this case compared to the one that you fought and won in 1997?
Mark, it is not very different, and I did not expect the approach by the court in this matter. The court, as the guardian of the Constitution, ultimately has to pay attention to whether a government is legitimately elected. I would concede that the law in relation to election petitions are very tortuous, filled with all sorts of technicalities, but you can't have technicalities which are contrived and created. In the previous cases we had, where elections petitions would have been tossed out, it would have been clear instances of non-compliance. You failed to file something 1 year after. You failed to file something 9 months after. So what we had here, Your Honor, was that the court decided seemed to be a very peculiar situation, where on the evidence itself, on the documents itself, it was actually sworn within the time. The date when the person signed it would have been 1 day later, which means that logically it could not have been signed on that date. It would have to be notarized on the earlier date because the person would have had to appear before the commission of oaths. So the evidence before the court indicated clearly that what the argument was being advanced by the lawyers for the PPP had no common sense in it. It could not simply have happened. But the court nevertheless accepted it and dismissed the petition. So I believe when we look at the nature and the type of law that governs elections petitions, you can't dismiss it on contrivances. And that is why I believe in the peculiar circumstances of this case, that the Court of Appeal may well find that it would must and have jurisdiction to review these type of matters. Because any judge could simply decide, for whatever reason, that they simply don't want an election petition to go forward, dismiss it, and the government remains. That is contrary and inconsistent with the democracy.
Indeed, inconsistent with the democracy. A judge just cannot decide, and I agree with you. And that's the argument currently in front of the Court of Appeals. And in fact, that was heard today. The decision, the final decision, is set for December 21st of this year. What happens after that? Is there a possibility that were you guys to lose this? And I hope that that's not the case, because Petition 99 is very important. But can a party take the next an appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice? Is that allowed now?
Yes, it is allowed.
Yeah, it is allowed.
And there's a distinct possibility that it will happen and will end up there.
Yeah, but distinct possibility indeed. Quickly before we go, Mr. Ford, break down how important is Petition 99?
Oh, Mark, Petition 99 is a very important petition. It is the petition that is grounded in the recount process and what emanated from the recount. It chronicles, essentially, Mark, the findings of what came out during the recount. It deals with the issues in relation to fraudulent voting and impersonation of thousands of persons who would have been out of the country and were recorded as voting. It deals with persons who would have been documented as being deceased. I'm still there, Mark?
Yeah, you're there. Go ahead, sir.
Yes,
Continue.
I thought we lost you there.
Yeah.
So it deals with that issue. It also deals, Mark, with the fact that during the recount process, we found at least 47 to 49 instances, particularly in the lower East Coast region, where over 11,000 votes could not be properly validated and authenticated because there were no statutory documents found in the ballot boxes when they were opened during the recount. It deals also with the numerous and improper use of the certificates of identity and the oaths of employment, which were used almost randomly and willy-nilly throughout the region. So it is a very important election petition because it deals with the credibility of the actual process that led to the results of the elections.
All right, well said, Mr. Ford. I know you're busy. Senior Counsel Ford, busy preparing for a Congress and so forth. We will have you back right here, maybe on Straight Up, to talk about your candidacy for a position in the People's National Congress, the upcoming Congress. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I look forward to coming on your show.
Oh, yeah, love to have you on. Roysdale Ford, Senior Counsel, have a great day.
You too, Mark.
All right, it's 48 minutes after 12 o'clock. 48 minutes after 12 o'clock. let's go quickly to this young man, Elson Lowe. I'm not sure if you got a chance to listen to that press conference earlier, something what we would want to describe as a press conference this morning, very early this morning by Mr. Irfan Ali. Good afternoon, your time, and welcome to this special program. How are you doing, sir? All right, seem to have some the usual hiccups. Yep, Mr. Lowe, good afternoon. Your microphone, please. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me on as always. And I did get a chance to listen to the press conference that the president gave earlier today, which was quite entertaining. But maybe not for the reasons that he would have wanted it to be entertaining.
Yeah, and what are two of the quick things that you immediately saw that it was just propaganda or just flat out lies?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that's really important to note is there's this narrative around cash grants that were given out, bonuses that were given out, and the comparison of that to salary increases. And I think that, it's very obvious to any government worker that a bonus that you get one-off is not in any way comparable to a salary increase, because a salary increase is every year you're going to get, this increase. That's for your career going forward. Whereas the bonus is just a one-time something. So in terms of the real benefit to you and in terms of the overall amount of money, that's, there's no comparison between those two things. And so I think that is really just trying to make Guyanese, assuming that Guyanese can't figure something like that out. And, I think it's very obvious to public servants that they prefer substantial salary increases over one-off initiatives.
This is your area in terms of studies, economy, and the economics aspect of a country. Do you find it mind-boggling that he would call an early morning press conference or issue a statement on what others have to say about the meager 7% increase? Do you find that troubling?
Well, what I would say is calling a press conference that early in the day. Someone remarked to me that they have never seen a head of state do something like that. Normally, you as a head of state would want to do something during prime time, so that everyone would be able to hear what you have to say. So I don't know what the purpose behind that was, but essentially, however, again, some of the things that were highlighted that are problematic is this question of attacking the unions. Saying that the unions are all politically affiliated. This attack, but it is important to note that the unions were not consulted. These legitimate unions that have existed for donkey years, as we say in Guyana, were not consulted, and they have pointed out something very important, which is that 10 billion was assigned to the budget for public servant salary adjustments and increases. And we're seeing only, I think it's 4-point-something billion of this that's actually being paid out in these increases. So what has happened to the additional 5.8, I believe, $billion? Where is that money gone? What has that money been used for? And why wasn't that money put towards public servants? That would have essentially doubled the increase that public servants would have received. I don't know whether that money has been diverted to Gaisuko to pay that $250,000 payout to retrenched workers. I don't know if that is what has gone on. But we do need to see some sort of accountability as to where the rest of this 10 billion is. Because if you budget for it and then you don't spend it where people expect you to spend it, we need to know where it was indeed spent.
And those are questions that need to be answered. He spoke of COVID cash grant, nothing about the thousands of people who are still with their pink slips. Absolutely nothing. Where that money gone to? Surprisingly, he didn't mention anything about the flood relief grant and all these different things. So he's just, I don't know what to take of that press conference. Those who watched it would certainly come to their own conclusions, and I know what those conclusions are. He still continued, though, Elson, with this 7,000 sugar workers that were terminated without any evidence. Surprising to you again?
So again, the bringing up of these terminated sugar workers, these workers receive their severance, and in the average severance, in some cases people receive as much as $800,000. We're not talking about small severance that was paid out to these sugar workers. And so I think that is this additional $250,000 is really out of place. The additional thing we're saying about sugar workers being terminated and that being something that the coalition did. What really happened is that the sugar industry was being right-sized. We know over its history that it has not been profitable for a prolonged period of time. We know that we received funds from the European Union for us to modernize the sugar industry, to make it profitable and to make it sustainable. Those funds, no one seems to know what happened to those many millions of dollars. And so as a result, we've got a difficult situation with the sugar industry, and as I've expressed in other forums, I think we need to really focus on migrating as much as possible sugar workers into the oil and gas industry, because that's where they're going to get better wages, and that's going to relieve a lot of the pressures on the industry. In fact, as wages rise across the country, as the economy grows, keeping sugar workers there is going to be increasingly costly. And if you look at countries like Norway, which produce a lot of oil, they have some of the highest agricultural subsidies. They have the highest agricultural subsidies in the entire European zone. So they pay a lot of money to agriculture to keep their agriculture going. If we are going to do that, we have to be very selective. Things like maybe rice and so on, staple foods that we want to preserve, we can be more flexible. But when Gaisuko is already not profitable, to be paying more and more each year to Gaisuko in order to keep it going, to me, it doesn't make any sense. We're also seeing, there's a call that we don't have enough workers in Guyana, so we have to import a large workforce and so on. But if you have a substantial number of people that are involved in an industry that is not productive, really we should be retraining workers so that they can get involved in the oil and gas industry and in other sectors of the economy, so that they're more productively engaged. So I think really what it is the preservation of Gaisuko to suit political ends, and that is not in the interests of the country. But more specifically, that is not in the interests of Gaisuko sugar workers, because they can make a higher income in other sectors of the economy once we retrain them. And that is something I think we will continue to talk about within the coalition.
All right, and you guys should continue to talk about it more often. Not surprising at all that he never mentioned that it was under the PPPC regime that they introduced that draconian 16% value-added tax. 16%. And to the credit of the coalition, that was reduced to 14%. I don't know. Politicking, yet this guy is saying that people are playing politics to trade unionists, of course referring to Lincoln Lewis without naming him. Any surprise there at all that he was so dishonest, dear Finale, that is, not to mention that it was under the PPPC regime with the 16%, and it was the coalition that actually brought that down to 14%. He also spoke about cars being imported into Guyana 8 years old. Anything more than 8 years old has been restricted. I don't know. A lot of Guyanese seem to have that, but go ahead.
Let me put it this way. I sometimes have some sympathy for our president, because he's asked to defend some really indefensible things. And what it boils down to is really what's going on is talking about everything except what needs to be talked about. Right? It's all sorts of other things that are being mentioned rather than what is really important. What is really important is Guyana last year was the fastest growing economy in the world. This year, it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The economy has expanded in excess of 50% in 2 years. Public servants have been critical to that expansion, facilitating the opening of businesses in the oil and gas sector, facilitating the conduct of business in the oil and gas sector. Even to even police who have to patrol are actually adding more value to the economy than they were before, because if Exxon workers go missing, or Exxon workers are not able to work for some reason, that's a substantial blow to the economy. So we're seeing public servants have a really big impact on Guyana's growth because of the importance of their role. And so I think talking about all of these other speaking about all of these other things to me is totally beside the point. The point is the country has grown substantially. Public sector workers have contributed substantially, and it is only fair that they receive some contributions from the government, that they receive compensation from the government that matches their role in the economy. I think all these other things, I don't even want to mention them because I don't see them as particularly relevant, and I don't want to give the opportunity to speak about things to deflect from what really is important. You cannot have a country growing faster than all the other countries in the world and not seeing substantial improvements to people's standard of living.
Well,
And
he
the
did.
comparisons that they've tried to make to all other countries in the world are comparisons that fall flat, because again, we are growing faster than all of these other countries, and none of them have expanded 50% in 2 years. So I think that this is laughable. And as a result, we have to keep the focus on what it should be, which is that Guyana is getting wealthier. Are you getting wealthier?
That's the question. Are the people getting wealthier with 9 point something billion dollars, US dollars, that is, that they got to repay to ExxonMobil? I don't know how much richer Guyanese, ordinary Guyanese folks are getting, but when you listen to Air Finale compare what is happening in the UK and other developed countries in terms of public servants, it's just a shame. I thought maybe I was watching a kindergarten child whom I have a lot of respect for, kindergarten kids who would have done a better job. But he got, out of a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give him probably a half a mark on that press conference, or so-called press conference this morning. Mr. Lowe, I give you the opportunity to speak of 2 other things that you think are important enough for our listeners to know that came out of what Air Finale said this morning. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much on that front. I think one of the things that really stands out to me going forward is this. The refusing to engage with the unions, I think, is a much bigger issue than people really realize. Because it's not just about what's going on today, it's about what's going to happen in the future. Do we really want a country where we do not engage at all with unions that have stood and represented workers for so many years, and where we just have unilateral things paid out, and where there are public outcries all the time because people have not been consulted? We haven't got a good sense of what it is that the needs of the population are. The idea that you can just not consult, there's even laws in place that say that you have to consult with the unions. The idea that you can just not do that, to me, is really troubling, because what it shows is that it's very likely that the future on the PPP will be this kind of unilateralism where they can just do whatever it is that they feel like doing. And it's mirrored really in what we saw with Gaisuka workers, where they just give them money, just out of the blue. And there's no specific explanation for why that amount and so on and so forth. So I think this is very troubling. The other thing that I would say is troubling is when it comes to the 50% that was promised the public servants. And they're now saying that was never promised and that's not a part of their manifesto. I must ask, 50% when the economy is growing at this rate is not a big, ridiculous number. In fact, between last year, this year, and next year, Guyana's economy should be roughly twice the size. And so for you to even be going 50% is kind of on the low end. So the fact that is creating so much stir and controversy among them, and they're backpedaling off of that, really concerns me, because I'm thinking now, are they going to be giving us much less than 50%? Is it going to be 20% increase over the course of, let's say, 5 years? You mean to tell me the economy is going to expand 100% and you're going to give like a 20% increase. That sounds, unbelievable to me. And so it really reflects, I think, troubling signs for the future. Because if this is going to be the policy going forward, then we're going to see some real problems in this country. And we're going to see people really annoyed by this. And the other thing that, really is below all of this is that the cost of living is going up. We're seeing inflation for food at the mid-year point was, 14%. The inflation at the mid-year point was, in excess of 5%. We had inflation last year as well. And we're not really matching that with improvements in people's earnings. That will lead to a fall in standards of living. So if we're going to be doing things unilaterally, and these things are not going to be matching the real needs of the people, then we're going to see people's standard of living fall as much as our revenues are rising. And that is an incredible thing to imagine. And in other areas, as housing is an example, rents and so on, those things have increased, and we expect them to increase as the oil and gas sector continues to grow. These things will continue to pile pressure on ordinary Guyanese. And so this is really a sign of the future, which is very concerning, and the idea that all of this is come out now in a 7:30 in the morning press conference, which you could argue is to ensure that nobody really hears what he was actually saying, or that raises real questions. So from that perspective, I think we need to look long and hard at this, and we need to ask ourselves what type of government we're looking at here, because they're clearly not serving the interests of the people if they're not keeping pace with the growth of the economy, with the wealth of the country, and not sharing out those gains. As I've also mentioned, we've had a great year, in terms of our oil revenues, which are, in some cases in excess, about 60% higher than our long-term average. So we've had a lot of money coming in. But
lots of money indeed
being redistributed.
Yeah. Lots of money indeed. Elson Lowe, we want to thank you so much, sir, for your time. We are going to, and thank you so much for breaking that down. Don't be a stranger. I know you're busy on the campaign trail yourself, trying to get into one of those offices there as a treasurer for the PNCR. Again, we wish you all the best, sir. We will go over to a press conference that the leader of the opposition is now having, along with some other members of parliament. Thank you, though, for your time, Mr. Lowe. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right, let us just try to head over to that press conference. Hopefully we'll get it. Not sure, but we'll be right back. Just give us maybe a quick couple seconds. In the meanwhile, we address this to Irfan Ali and his guys.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business. Number two, the hilarious part is that the ordinary thief will choose whom to rob. But you are the one who choose the political thief to rob you. Because we choose them. We vote them.